All right. Are we live on YouTube?
Live on YouTube.
Fantastic. Well, we're getting ready to start here, everybody. We're just going to give everybody a quick chance to get on the line. It's right at the hour, and everybody go ahead and check in with Maria. We got Maria on the lines here. We're so excited about today. It's going to be an exciting day. I'm so pumped. I can't say how pumped I am about the guests today, but and I guess it's no surprise, right? It's Tom. I've been telling everybody about it for the last week.
That's true. We have been building up the appearance for Tom, so
Yeah.
hopefully you all enjoy it.
Yes. Well, everybody, it is now 9 a.m. We'll give it, like I said, just another minute here. Make sure everybody can join the call. And then we'll bring our guest host, Tom, on, and we'll get started with Converge PoE. It's a very exciting day. For those of you who don't know, Converge PoE is PoE Texas's live stream about technology that converges on PoE. And I'll get into that introduction here right now. So let's get started with our live stream. Everybody check in with Maria, say hi,
Yep.
and let us get started. Welcome to the PoE Texas live stream, Converge PoE. If you're interested in getting the most out of your network infrastructure, including your live streaming system, you're in the right place. Following up on the great feedback we had from the conversation we had with Paul Richards on our first publicly broadcasted live stream from PTZ Optics, we're bringing you another exciting discussion about PoE and what's happening in live streaming. So, break out your toughest questions and send them over to us on the chat line. We have Maria manning the chat lines to make sure that your questions get answered, and give us your input on what tough projects you'd like to learn about so we can do the follow-up videos and bring on the guest stars for what you want to know about. And stick around for our exclusive announcements about navigating NAB with a pro, Tom Sinclair, including his exclusive invitation-only event, as well as a sneak peek at our streaming content here at PoE Texas. So, with that, let's get started. Most of you already know me, and I apologize about the ticker down below. Learning to do the tickers here. Most of you already know me, Tyler Andrews, the CEO here at PoE Texas, and my lovely co-host, Miss Maria Medell.
Hello again, everybody. Happy to be here.
Before we introduce our amazing guest host today, I know this may be the first live stream for a lot of people out there, so I'm going to do a quick demo on how to comment on a live stream with YouTube and Facebook. So with that, I'm going to jump right over here to, I'm going to drop that one off and go with our 24. Let me see if I get my N12 up here. There we go. And so you're seeing us on the live screen. I'm going to bring up a just a new window here so you can see what it looks like. And I'm going to log into PoE. I'm going to go to YouTube and come visit the PoE Texas live stream, which I'm very excited about. Here we are live now. If you haven't already logged in live, you should, because you know it works, right?
That's true.
If you haven't logged in live, you should. But down here on the right, let me get this situated in the right spot where you can see it. Down here on the right with YouTube, there's this nice little comment area. You can see my name, and I am checking in. And I'm going to hit send on that one. And that'll pop up to Maria, who will be ready to send that over to us and get your comments up on the screen. And I apologize, that's getting ahead of ourselves. And then the same is true if we come here to Facebook. I'm going to come over here to PoE Texas and see this live stream. This very handsome man is on my live stream here. And it's very easy to go ahead and just scroll down here to write a comment. Just send us a comment checking in about NAB. And unfortunately, while I'm broadcasting, I am not the best typer, but Maria will make sure that I get taken care of.
And right now, the Facebook comments won't be able to be thrown up on the screen, but I'll still be viewing them, so I'll be able to, if you have a good question or a comment, I'll still be able to share it with the viewers as well.
All right, so comment, give us feedback. We love to get feedback. We love to learn about you. So and enjoy this live stream on YouTube and Facebook. So I'm going to hand it over to Miss Maria Medell here for introducing our amazing guest host today. So Maria, take it away.
Yep, so hi again everyone. Thank you for joining us again. It's wonderful to have these with you bi-weekly. I want to introduce you today to our guest expert, Tom Sinclair. Now, as Tyler mentioned earlier, you may have, had the anticipation and heard a lot about him from our previous shows. But he is our guest today. So since 2008, Tom has been an advocate for live streaming after streaming his son's soccer game on a webcam that was duct taped to a tripod. His streaming setup has much improved since then, which is pretty evident on his YouTube channel, which he started back in 2012. His most recent endeavor is Streaming Idiots, a web show that's all about live streaming, the ins and outs, the do's and don'ts. So be sure to check that out as well. It airs Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time from the Eastern Shore Broadcasting Studios in Fairhope, Alabama.
So let's say hello to Tom.
Hi guys, how are y'all?
Pretty well. Thanks for joining us today.
Do y'all say y'all in Texas?
Oh, I know I do.
It's part of the local lexicon. Yes, you should say y'all.
Yeah. All right. Thank
Well,
you
Tom,
for having me on the show today. I'm delighted. It's a very unfortunate buildup because people are just going to be disappointed after such a great buildup. But I'll do my darndest here on this end.
Hey, you know what? You are excellent. We love having you on the show. I was really excited to be on your show when you invited me on. And we're so excited to have you on our live stream. Maybe a great way to get more familiar to our audience today, can you share a little something personal about how you or why you got into streaming in the first place?
I'm happy to. Tyler, I don't come from a broadcasting background. I didn't work in TV. I didn't work in radio. I didn't work as a photographer or a videographer or, in anything to do with any of the technical skills that you need in this area. I'm just a dad. I've got 3 boys and they all played sports and as Maria was saying, there was that fateful day when somebody asked me, said, Sinclair, can you figure out a way to put live video on the internet? And I said, sure, I guess. and it just all kind of flowed out from that. And, the very first time we did that, we had a huge online audience. And back then, you could throw any junk up on the internet and it would get a great audience. Today, you have to work much harder. But back then, we did, and I was overwhelmed by the response, and I realized I didn't know what this thing was, but I knew it was a thing. It was going to be a big thing. And I wanted to be a part of it because I love getting in on big things. And I love technology, so it was a good match for me. And I made every mistake in the book, and spent, I don't know how much money buying the wrong stuff time and time again, trying to find the right stuff. But it was kind of like the early days of hot rodding, where all these aftermarket parts weren't available. You just had to kind of manufacture and recraft your own. And then technology companies started getting in on the bandwagon and developing specific items just for live streaming, whereas before we had to take stuff for broadcasting or closed circuit TV and kind of try to modify it to work for us. Now we're in the golden age of live streaming. It's just amazing. It really is amazing.
It is. Having done it here, us, and we've done
just
done
a
it.
handful of times too.
Yeah, just in the last 3 months, really. Based on your recommendation, by the way, everybody. I just so you know, I've been following Tom's notes very carefully. He's been great pitching in, and yeah, we are in the golden age. Realistically, it's a doable and achievable thing for someone who is not a super technician who knows everything. That's I appreciate the feedback. Well, Tom, let's get started. You're doing great answering questions. Would you mind breaking down for us the main elements of a good live broadcasting setup, and maybe touch a little bit on where PoE plays a part of that?
You know, if I were smart enough, I could probably answer a question like that, but I'll give it my best. You know, a live stream has to have a video component. It has to have an audio component. In fact, the audio component is almost more important than the video component. Is that, I'm up to 2? Is that?
Yeah,
okay.
2.
Right.
2.
So
Keeping track, we're up to 2.
You can have kind of crappy video, but if the audio's good, people will watch. But if you have crappy audio, you're done. I mean, they'll listen for a moment or two, and then if there's a diesel truck in the background, or if there's scratchy, or if there's an echo or something like that, people just won't tolerate that. Their standards are too high. But the video part of this is new enough on your phone or on your computer at home that you can tolerate video that's not perfect. But those are the 2 most important things, and then you kind of have to have something to bundle it together. Something to take the audio and put it with the video, and maybe some graphics like we've got going right here now, and the ability to have maybe multiple things going on at the same time. A graphic element, a ticker across the bottom. Probably one of the coolest things that ever happened to me in live streaming was discovering a piece of software that allows you to combine all these things together in a PC. It's called vMix. It's written by a couple of guys out of Australia, and one of them wanted to live stream their Christmas service like 10 years ago, and it was going to cost $25,000. I don't know if that was U.S. or Australian, but anyway, it was going to cost a chunk of change to rent the equipment. Yeah, exactly. It was going to, and it wasn't economically feasible. So he was a programmer, so he sat down and he crafted a piece of software that would combine the image of a camera with the audio, and then allow it to be streamed out to the internet to a destination. And he shared that, gave it away to his friends. I mean, the Christmas show was a great success, and people asked, can I have a copy of this? So he was giving it away copies for, I don't know how long he gave this software away, and he kept working on it on the side, making it better. He just is one of those kind of people that just can't accept good enough. He's got to have better than better than better than. And before you knew it, he put it out on the market. In fact, he is a long lost cousin of mine. Martin Sinclair, the CEO of vMix. I mean, all us Sinclairs have got to be related. That's what we figure. His 19th cousins or something like that.
Isn't Sinclair an Irish name, by the way? Sinclair is an Irish name, right?
Yeah.
Scottish. Okay, so we're all Scottish or Irish at some point,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
We were just talking about that this morning, too.
That's right.
Sorry, I interrupted, Tom. Go ahead.
No. You're good. You're very good. And so the vMix is kind of the glue that holds all this stuff together. It brings in audio, brings in video, brings in graphics, allows you to live stream, allows you to record. And with some of the recent changes, and I'm a vMix advocate. I mean, I'm an advocate. I sell the software. I build computers for people that want to use vMix, and have been one of vMix's resellers for I think 5 years now. And I really believe in the product. Really believe in the product. I use it every day. Well, not Saturdays, but Monday through Friday, and then on Sundays. And the software keeps getting better and better. I mean, we are coming together here, you and I, over this thing called vMix Call, which is kind of like built-in Skype. And so, from your perspective on your desktop, I'm just another camera in your workflow with audio attached to it.
You're way more than that.
And look at my video. No. But in terms of this source, and my video probably looks as good as yours. And even though you're in Texas and I'm in Alabama, and there's probably a, I don't know, 200 or 300 millisecond latency between us, a third of the second, maybe a quarter of a second, something like that. So if there's that kind of uncomfortable pause between the time I say something and stop saying it and you say it, that's that latency there. But this vMix call was introduced, I think, 2 years ago, and was a tremendous impact on the industry. I love being associated with people that are on the cutting edge. And that's why bumping into you back in January down in Orlando at the FX conference there was so cool, because I was like, okay, this guy he may know it, but he doesn't know, I don't think, that he's a rock star yet. And Tyler, I'm talking about you in case anybody's wondering. Yeah. And so you're explaining to me and Paul Richards about PoE, and 9/10 of it's going over my head, because I'm still struggling to figure out what the P and the O and the E means. But I was so impressed that you understood. I mean, you understood what you understood, like 4 levels deep, and could bring that out to me. And so, am I using PoE? Yeah, I use PoE every day. But for me, PoE is like peanut butter and jelly. I don't think anything about putting the peanut butter and jelly on the bread. I just use it. It works every single time. It's reliable, and it has become part of my workflow. One of the cameras that I'm working with, well, actually, it's the one above me right now. I have an overhead camera for when I do computer bills and that kind of stuff and live stream that. The overhead camera is run PoE because it's much easier to run one cable to it than it is to run 2 or 3 cables to it. And PoE is just, it was the right tool for the job. I was at an elementary school this morning, and they wanted to live stream something from the cafeteria. And they had an internet jack, and they had an electrical outlet right next to it. So we were able to run PoE, i.e. one camera through the cafeteria, one cable to the camera in the cafeteria, and we had one cable that we had to deal with. We didn't have to worry about a power cable and a control cable and a video cable. It was all wrapped up in that one little crazy Ethernet cable. I mean, I'm sorry, I know I'm going on and on about this, but it is so doggone exciting. I mean, you've got one cable that's got 8 little wires in it, and all those 8 wires do amazing things. So, Tyler, tell me, you got to tell me something about PoE that I don't already know today, and that ought to be really easy because I don't know most of it.
Well, something that not a lot of people may be aware of, because it is so new, Tom, and it happened at the end of last year. It is the new 802.3 BT standard. So for those of you who are newer with PoE, they're IEEE, our good friends at IEEE, and it's pronounced IEEE, by the way. That's something that you might not have known. When you see it, it's not IEEE, it's IEEE. Very important. You got to sound like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you have to know the lingo.
Yeah, it's IEEE, and then it's 802 dot, and you do the 802, right? I mean, you know that's the way people pronounce it. So I'm helping you with the lingo here, Tom. You're gonna be a streaming pro, a PoE pro, but it's 802.3, and then there's 2 letters that come next. The first 2 letters that came out years ago were AF, and that was low wattage power. I mean, that's your a small camera, a phone, something like that. AT came out a few years later, so the 802.3 AT standard, and that gave you 25 watts, which is very cool. That would do a small tablet. That'll do some more high-powered Wi-Fi access points, grew the power. Well, we're at 25 watts, right, in the history of things. And then, boom, 2018 came. In the fall of 2018, they upped the standard to 802.3 BT. And with BT, you can go all the way up to 90 watts of power. And it's beautiful. I mean, the kinds of things you can do with it, you can do lights, you can do controls, you can actuate things. I mean, that's a lot of power. Now, it takes some special things, and we're working with it right now. We're excited. In April, we're going to be coming out with our mid-span that will have 80 watts of power per port. Thing just puts out power like you wouldn't believe. And it's actually a little hard to find a right power supply for it, because you're talking, when you do a large one like we're doing, you could be talking 1,500, 2,000 watts of power at any good one time. And that's an exciting thing that's out there. So for our audience who don't know, you can now do things like run and I'll share right here next to Maria, and I could try and bring it up on our little webcam. Maria is using a full tablet computer, 30-inch tablet computer running on PoE. Just one network cable in. It's very cool. So that's something that you may not know. And I'm going to do one thing. I want to track back just a little bit, Tom, to be clear. vMix is not sponsoring this video. They haven't given us a nickel for what we're talking about today.
Quite a few nickels, I think.
Yeah, we've given them nickels, but no. I just, you want to be clear. This is not a vMix commercial. This is one of those situations where, yes, I use vMix too. Based on Tom's great recommendation, he said do it. Paul Richards over at PTZ Optics said, yeah, Tyler, you really should be using vMix. So I went ahead and downloaded it. My little plug for vMix is, it took me a week or two to get it all set up. Originally, I'd set up on on OBS, Livestream OBS, and I was very excited about it. And then, when we decided to do these calls, like you talked about the vMix call, the open source live streaming software out there really didn't handle bringing on guests and getting the quality of the video like you're pointing out. I mean, you look great. And so that was one of those areas where I decided to make the plunge, and go with vMix. And you can see, hopefully, it took me about a week or two just to get it all sorted out and worked out. But very intuitive software, been a pleasure to work with. And in fact, I'm excited to meet Martin over at NAB coming up. So that's exciting. So, well, I got a question for you, Tom. What not a lot of our viewers may know is that your specialty, what you really bring to the field of live streaming, are the computers. And I'll do a little bit of an introduction here on my own personal experience. I had a Nook lying around in the office, a little i7 Nook, one of those nice little guys, and I thought I'd be really clever trying to live stream on the Nook. And unfortunately, our good friend Paul felt the effects of that because during my live stream, we're streaming to 2 channels, doing video, doing stingers. I'm graphically intense. The CPU basically crashed. And there was a lot of latency, a lot of issues with it. And I really struggled. I was quite embarrassed, and I appreciate Paul was a consummate pro. Didn't bat an eye. Just did an amazing show. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It's on our live stream archive on the PoE Texas YouTube channel. But I walked away from that thing saying never again. So Tom, you do computers. That's what you specialize in doing, and making sure the computers have the right features. So tell me and our audience today any special things they need to make sure they're getting out of a computer. If I'm considering getting into live streaming, what do I need to make sure I have to get the best out of my live stream?
Got it. Yeah, that's a great question. Because I have a lot of people, they'll call me and say, yeah, we've got a computer and we've got a camera and we want to live stream, but we can't figure out how to put it all together. And it turns out, they bought a computer that's not going to work right. They've got a camera that doesn't have the right connectors on it. And they've, hopefully they've got it from Amazon, they can return it, or they got it from Best Buy and they can take it back. Because they put the cart before the horse. And that's one of the things that when we work with a client, we're saying, okay, forget about all that stuff for just a minute. What do you want to do? What do you want it to look like when you're done? And let's take that and build to meet that need, as opposed to just collecting a bunch of equipment and then trying to do something with it. Let's have your end goal in mind So if you're a church and you want to do a 4-camera, you use 4 cameras and 3 of them are going to be remotely operated, those PTZ cams. But you want to also be able to bring in a missionary on a phone call from Africa. That's a pretty specific set of needs. That's different than if Tyler calls me and says, well, I want to do a talk show from my office studio, and we're going to have 1 camera and 1 microphone. That's a different ballgame. Or who was it? A AA baseball team called me the other day, and they want to do a multi-camera setup, but it's going to be fixed cameras. They don't want anything moving. They don't want any camera people. Well, again, that requires a different set of needs. So based on the needs, we can develop essentially the components that need to be in this computer to meet the needs, whether it's a capture card or a second internet card, a second Ethernet card, or whether they need big monitors, whether there's a certain footprint they need to fit into, or if they're anticipating some expansion down the road, especially for churches. A lot of them are in temporary digs, and they know they're going to be in a permanent place in a year or two, but they want to start live streaming now. And so based on those needs, we develop a component list. The component list allows us to put together some pricing, and then we write a proposal for them and say, this is what it's going to take. And almost always there's sticker shock. It's like, oh my gosh, I can go to Best Buy and buy a computer for $1,500. And I say, yeah, I can go to the Ford dealer and buy a pickup truck too. But the pickup truck is not going to carry the 1,800 tons that I need to be carried. I need a couple of 18-wheelers to do all that stuff. And so it's a matter of crafting, essentially building the right tool for the job. I understand some people can't afford always the right tool for the job, and so they start with a lesser tool. Tyler, you and I talked the other day about screwdrivers, and I remember my very first screwdriver was a hand-me-down, and the blade was kind of rounded on the end, and it didn't do well, but it kind of did okay. But when I was able to get my good Craftsman screwdriver set that was brand new and perfectly made, boy, did I notice the difference in the tool that I was using to get the job done. It was the right tool for the job, and it made all the difference. I didn't start out getting into that business. People just kept calling me and saying, Tom, what do you recommend? What do you recommend? And I'd say, well, you can go here to do this, you can go there to do that. And then there was that one day I finally said, well, look, I'll just build something for you. And it was, it wasn't that time. It was the third time I built one. It was a racetrack up in Michigan, and they said, this is what we need. And I say, okay, well, this is going to cost X dollars. And 3 days later, I had a check in the mail. There was no contract. There was no anything. They was just like, you're our guy. We think you can do it. That was 4 or 5 years ago. But we put a 3-year warranty on the system, and since we're a vMix reseller and we're including vMix, it's a hardware software solution where you get to call one person instead of having everybody pass the buck. Oh well, it's the computer's fault. Oh well, it's the software's fault. You got one person to call. I had somebody call me the other day and said, look, we've got PTZ optics cameras and we've got vMix and we've got a custom built computer, not one I built, but one they had built. And they said, we really need somebody that knows all three because we're having problems. We can't get them to work right. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you should have called me for the system to begin with. But nevertheless, okay, yes, I think that I'm uniquely qualified to help you out because we've been working with PTZ Optics for 4.5, going on 5 years, with vMix for 6 years, and been building custom PCs for 6 years. So I think we're going to be able to help them. But yeah, I didn't mean for this to be a big ad for what we do at Eastern Shore Broadcasting. But frankly, it's a joy to work with people and to be able to help them solve the problems that they're running into, and achieve their goals at the other end. I really take a lot of satisfaction in that. That's very, very satisfying.
Well, and what I'm going to take away from this, Tom, is manage expectations, right? I mean, people come in and they have this vision. I want to be able to do everything under the sun. I want to have a dozen cameras, 3 dozen settings. I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to do that. What I've taken from our conversations with you today and also before is manage expectations. Don't try and overreach day one, because you could say, my first live stream, I want it to be production quality. I want the guys from CNN to be calling me and asking me to be doing their set design, and that's not a realistic expectation. And also there's a price tag that comes with it too. If that is what you need, if that's something you have to have, go to the right professionals, get the right counseling. I mean, you can't expect to do production level live streams where you have multiple cameras and pay the price that you would if you were just streaming from the little camera on top of your laptop and talking at your laptop computer. They're different, and that's really important, and that's good feedback to know for all of us new live streamers out there. Set the expectation with the kind of pricing that we can feel confident and comfortable with, knowing that at the right time you do need a guy like Tom to produce a computer and help you get that packaged all up, or you need to take a step back and say, are my needs really to that point? And I think that's important. That's an important self-examination for yourself.
I agree. And so maybe to take a minor...
The other thing, guys,
sorry,
is...
Go ahead.
No, that's all right. That's the delay getting us. I was going to say, I really want to be able to play professional baseball. And, maybe 30 years ago or 40 years ago, I might have had a shot at it, but it was going to take a really good coach to coach me up in skills that I might not already possess. And live streaming is the same way. It's developing a whole set of skills that generally most people don't already possess, and putting those skills to use in making a live stream. I mean, Tyler, you talked about your learning curve, and that's what it is. You're acquiring new skills. You're experimenting with things to see what works and what doesn't work, and then you build on what works. And that's just like any other skill set. You have to develop it and build it. And part of it is knowing the equipment that you're working with. Knowing about your cameras, knowing about your microphones, knowing how certain microphones are good in certain circumstances. Right now I'm using a condenser mic, which is a super sensitive mic. And so this room that I'm in has got a lot of sound treatment in it to keep extraneous noise from, number one, coming into the room, and then to keep any kind of echo in the room. I mean, I've got these sound blankets draped all over the place. And that's because this mic is so sensitive. But I didn't want to use a lapel mic. I didn't want to have a microphone coming into the screen on the side, because I didn't want anything to come between me and my viewer. Hey, it's just me. I'm just Tom. We're just sitting here talking. But the look that I wanted required me to do some special things here in the studio to make that look work. And that's, kind of a case in point of that whole thing. What are you guys using for a microphone today?
We have one on our desk here that hopefully projects both of us equally as well.
I'm going to hold it up to the camera. Pardon the sound. It's a blue snowball. Let's see if the cable will run. So I've got a whole video, Tom, that I'll run through that shows our full setup, and I could talk about the different equipment we have on our setup. So when we get to that point, I will lift up the curtain, if you will, and show you guys what's going on behind the scenes with us here. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't want to spoil that yet.
Yeah, not yet. We'll save that for a little later in the show. To take a bit of a break on the technical terms you and Tom have been sharing, Tom, what would you say is one of the biggest hurdles someone would face if they wanted to maybe switch from a pre-recorded podcast taping or show to do a live stream version?
Ooh, that's a great question. That is a great question. From podcast to broadcast, I love it. Yeah, I'm talking with some people about doing that right now, of taking their podcast, which is a pre-recorded audio-only broadcast, and adding a video element to it. And they kind of want to take it in two stages. They want to kind of keep that podcast feel with the microphones hanging in there and the spit guard on it and all that kind of stuff, and keep it looking like a podcast. But they want to add a video element to it. So they've got they want to have a couple of cameras, one camera facing each one of the speakers, and basically just live stream their podcast the way they typically record it. Other people have said, Tom, I've done the podcast thing, but I really want to go to more of a TV talk show look, similar to what we're working with right now. And so I have to kind of not use the same equipment I'm using right now. I have to use different microphones because I don't want there to be a mic in the screen. I have to use a different set, maybe do a green screen like what I have behind me today is this is a green screen. This is a video. It's actually a video that a friend sent me. He said, Tom, you need a decent background. So he sent me this video. That was about 5 years ago. We've used it ever since. But the element of adding video means that probably the biggest change is that if they're using a PC for their recording, they're probably going to have to add something to it or get a bigger, faster one to incorporate video. Video probably takes, I don't know, maybe 10 or 20 times more processing power than audio does. So audio is lightweight, easy to go. And some people have problems with the synchronization of the video and the audio because the audio is showing up early. Well, that's because it's such a lightweight signal. It doesn't have to go through as many gates and bridges in order to get there. So you have to delay the audio a little bit to match the video. But I think we'll see it more and more, podcasting moving to broadcasting, and we see the same thing true with terrestrial radio. We've worked with several local radio stations about, again, for them, adding a video element to it, not making it into a TV talk show, but basically adding some cameras into their studio so the talent that's on air while they're doing their regular show, they can now dress a particular way to create that image or that persona on air. They can make eye contact with the camera to make contact with the folks that are actually watching. I think it represents a good opportunity for radio and a tremendous opportunity for podcasters to increase their reach. Doesn't mean they stop podcasting. It just means they add another element to it, which will add new people to their audience, I think. I think it's great. Great question, Maria.
Yeah. Well, Cliff Griffin just chimed in, and I love it when people give comments like this because they're frank, they're honest, and he's saying, what are we going to talk about the technical difficulties and the type of equipment and PoE, etc. And Cliff, thank you. You get on, you're having a great conversation, and they veer off. So let's talk about some real practicals here about PoE and in particular live streaming. And the way that I'm going to do that, Tom, if you don't mind, I'm gonna jump over here and show Cliff, like we talked about, our setup here in the office and what we do and how we use PoE. Now, a traditional way for using PoE obviously is a PoE camera using NDI. And for those of you who don't know what NDI is a software platform that it compresses broadcast grade video so that it can run on a network cable. And the first thing that a lot of people did was, well, if we could do it over a network cable, why don't we add PoE? So your first application would be as a PoE powered camera. But I'm doing a couple of non-traditional things with PoE in my office because that's just what I get a kick out of doing. So, Tom, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to switch over real quick, and I'm going to show a little video and narrate about what we're using for PoE here in the office in our setup. So, what we've got here, and I'm gonna run this guy back at the beginning here. Make sure I get this thing. Sorry, I apologize. It's running toward the end. We'll get it started from the beginning again. But what we have here going on is you can see our main setup. It's a general screen, and we're using two main products that I think are exciting. One is a PoE extender, and that extender will take PoE in and output power and data. And we're also using our PoE to Lightning adapter. So if you look there, big computer on the ground, that big computer that right there, really important to have. And then you can see our PoE switch that I'm using to power up a couple of things on our console. So you can see that's our PoE to Lightning adapter. I've got one there. I've got a second one there. And I'll explain what those do in just a second. And the teleprompters, you can see we've got lights on either side, making sure we're getting the lighting right. You can see the snowball camera there, or the snowball mic right there in front down below. On the right, that is our controller that we're using to control vMix on an iPad, and that's our social media controller, both being run power and data. And then up above is our teleprompter. All those are being run on with wired data and power over PoE. A very exciting use to be able to get a lot more functionality with much fewer cables running around the office. We have one cable running back to our main switch that we use for power, and that keeps it a cleaner configuration, and I personally like it. Now what's cool about this is that little switch does 60 watts of PoE in, and I can power all 3 iPads with one network cable, and I personally get a kick out of that. That's just something
We play around with them a lot here.
Yes.
Yep.
I get a kick out of doing those. And they were a big deal for us. So, and that's a little bit of the behind-the-scenes action for us. So for you guys out there in the audience, if you have questions about that setup, about that hardware, how it works, let me know. We want to chat about it. We got myself, we got Tom. We can answer all those questions. And thank you, Cliff, for getting us back on task.
Getting us the nitty-gritty of the PoE.
Yeah, get us talking about the real deal. And so what we're, going back to that, Tom, I think a lot of us are going over to NAB coming up, and New Tech is going to be at NAB. They're the guys who created NDI. Paul and I talked about NDI on the show when he was here. What does somebody who's new to broadcasting or may not have done this before need to know about NDI?
They don't need to know anything. Not a thing. NDI, at least in my world, most of the time it just happens. It's just there. We run a show on Wednesday afternoons called Streaming Idiots, and we have 2 PCs, both of which would be underpowered if they were used as a primary PC for live streaming. But NDI allows us to exchange video resources between the two computers, so that essentially we can have one computer doing the production and the other computer can do the streaming and the recording. And neither one of which would be powerful enough to do both or do all 3 functions if they had to. But it's the NDI connection between the two over the Ethernet cable that's already plugged into both PCs, because they're both plugged into a switch that goes into the network. So it's like, what do you need to know about a screwdriver? You just put it in and you turn the screw. And NDI is part of the tool set that we use when we need to exchange video or essentially data in a production. We use NDI. I'm trying to think some of the other places that we use NDI. The cameras that Paul Richards at PTZ Optics sells have an NDI/HX option. That means that you can plug one cable in, and it'll power it, it'll control it, and it'll send the video out over the Ethernet cable with very, very little latency to a system that is running a software like vMix that happens to be able to interpret NDI and bring it in as an NDI source. So in some ways, it's not very exciting. It's not even a Phillips head screwdriver. It's a flat blade screwdriver. It's a slotted screwdriver. But it's a great tool to solve a lot of problems. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Paul gave me some
more
advice.
Products that are coming out for that. Sure, go
Yeah, well,
ahead.
Paul gave me some advice about using it with their cameras that was really important that I didn't know. I wouldn't have known necessarily. Um, you need to um, number one, look for a gigabit switch when you're using NDI. Don't go 10100. 10100 is going to throw the cameras and that type of equipment out of whack, and it just won't work. And then when you're getting deep enough into it, you need to start learning about topics like IGMP snooping and multicasting. All things we don't need to cover today, but because Paul covers them really well, and if you want to get into that, I would say go back and check out Paul's videos on those topics. He really covers them in depth. Mm-hmm. Excellent. And then, like Tom, you're saying, once you get the basics of the gigabit switch, the multicast, the IGMP snooping, and you get your setup working, then it is kind of very much just let it sit back and let it work.
I agree. And, you know, I don't even know anything about snooping. I don't know anything about casting, much less multicasting. So you don't have to know a whole lot in order to be able to put that process in place. It's just when, you know, there's some cases where it's an installation where there may be some firewalls involved or you know, a managed network where you need to get into the minutia and make those adjustments. But for most folks, yeah, you know, a gigabit switch that has PoE and, you know, one cable works for everything. Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff.
Well, you know, if it's all right, guys, I'm looking at our time. We're having a great conversation, but our chat line is starting to get a little full, and we have Tom. Tom has been awesome enough to come on our call. If it's all right, everybody, I'd like to swing over to the chat line and let the audience ask questions, because I think they're going to come up with much better questions than I could, and I've monopolized the time, and I apologize, everybody, about that. So with that, I'm going to switch us over to our chat line and have Maria start hitting us up with chat.
And I apologize for keep looking down. I'm getting the Facebook comments as they come in on a different screen. So we have Cliff again. He just wanted to say, I think, some good few notes about Tom and his company. He thinks that y'all are great, it looks like. He was able to call your representative and get an answer right away.
I think he was talking about you, by the way.
Oh, me! Oh, well, thank you very much, Cliff.
What Cliff is talking about, and this is really important, Tom, and I'm sure you're the same way. Knowing that you can reach out to somebody and talk to somebody about your technical issues, that's so important, because I think you said it right. Somebody called you up, Tom, and said, you know, I need help with this. Technical products need help, and having a company and a group who recognize that and aren't just going to like stonewall you and say, look, you bought the product. If you didn't know how it was going to work, you shouldn't have bought it in the first place. That kind of stuff just gets my hackles up, and so it really gets me worried.
We have Chris here on Facebook. He's saying hello from San Antonio.
Hey, Chris.
Specifically, hello to you, Tom. And then we have Tommy Willis also. He said he's a huge fan of the live streaming cult. Perfect word choice. And he said he's a big fan of you, Tom. So thank you for joining us, Tommy.
Thanks for coming over. That was really cool. Of all these people, the live streaming community, by the way, is a fantastic community. Wonderful, open, friendly community, and I've really appreciated getting involved in it, because it's such an open-armed community, willing to bring people in, willing to accept them, and Tom's got a really great audience that watches his show. Congratulations, Tom.
We have a Facebook question from Chris. Chris Z. I apologize, I don't want to mispronounce your last name, Chris. He said, will you guys have a booth at NAB?
Tom, do you have a booth at NAB?
Well, sort of.
Two booths, I think, if I count it right.
Yeah. Actually, vMix buys me. Well, they rent me for 5 days every year, and they've rented me again this year to come out and work with them at NAB. I should know the booth number. It's in the South Lower Hall. But vMix will be there in a booth. I'll be there. Tim will be there. Martin will be there. And there'll be a couple other folks representing vMix there. It's going to be a really great time. vMix just introduced vMix 22, so there'll be a lot of stuff to talk with. And I'll be there when I'm not at the PTZ Optics booth. They've invited me to come do my weekly live show, Streaming Idiots, from their booth because they're going to be set up for live streaming. And in fact, PTZ Optics is going to be hosting our little intimate soiree on Tuesday night, April 9th at 6 o'clock. It's the Streaming Idiots meetup. So if you're involved in live streaming, come join us to meet other people that are involved with live streaming and make some new friends and get some contacts. And I think we're going to have 3 shrimp there because the Civic Center wants, the convention center wants about $10 per shrimp. So I think we can afford 3 of them. So get there early. So
yes.
those are the, but now, Tyler, are you going to be walking around, or are you associated with the booth this time?
I'm going to be walking the show. I'm going to be on foot, checking out the different booths. I've been invited to several different booths to talk to different people. A big shout out to Harry Patel over at Panasonic. I'm coming out to see you. I'm definitely going to see Paul. I'm so excited to see Martin. Paul at PTZ Optics, Martin at vMix. I'm going to be swinging by their booth. I'm going to be swinging by the guys over at Blackmagic. I've been using the DaVinci Resolve product for some of our video editing, so I wanted to go give a shout out to those guys and see their booth. But no, I'm going to be on foot and wearing my my shtick. You'll recognize me. I'm 6'7", wearing a big PoE Texas, and then for this I add a nice little LED sign that says PoE Smart Power.
We were testing out the new setup we have here, and one of them was, oh, let's see how it looks when we stand next to each other, and him being 6'7", me being 5'7", didn't quite look that even on camera, so he'll definitely stand out in the crowd.
Well, I think Cliff and Tech City and Honolulu both are asking really good questions. Let's get them up, talking about...
Yep, let's throw that up.
I want to answer those questions. Those are really exciting questions.
Tech in the City said, aloha from Hawaii earlier in the show. Glad you're coming all the way from Hawaii. His question, or their question, I've accidentally purchased a PoE S87 switch instead of the GPoE version before. Found out the limitations very quickly. As Tyler was mentioning, you need the gigabit versus the 10100 for that video. And then on top of that, Cliff wanted to know, based off of that, could we explain the gigabit switches types maybe in more detail?
And that's a great question. So Tech in the City and Cliff, thank you for these excellent questions. Data speeds are, years ago started out really small. I mean, we're talking phone lines, and it used to be you were talking like 3 megabits per second. And a megabit per second is just how many bytes per second. I won't go too deep into that, but what happened is a few years ago, everybody settled on the idea of 10/100, and 10/100 means you can get up to 100 megabits per second, and any decent switch, any switch anybody would sell will auto negotiate either 10 or 100 megabits per second. And what that does is it actually talks on 4 of the wires. So it sends one signal out and it receives one signal back, and that's why you get the 4 wires, and that's 10/100. Gigabit, what ends up happening is if you cut open an Ethernet cable, you'll see it actually has 8 wires in there. And the 8 wires means you get 2 lines of sending and 2 lines of returning data signal. And it is 10 times faster. The trick is when you're doing, the reason why NDI needs the gigabit speed is because even though it's compressing aggressively, it can't compress down to 100 megabits per second. But a couple of interesting things that you should know about is that an IP camera, like your normal security IP camera that you put on your house or you put in your office, that can easily run on 10/100. You don't need gigabit for a traditional IP camera. Also, another interesting thing not many people know about, USB 2 data is only 10100. So a lot of people will say, oh, well, I got this USB thing, and we do PoE to USB. That's one of our things. And they're saying, well, I got to have the best data because USB sends a lot of data. They go overkill, and that's not really true. USB 2 and below only does 100 megabits per second. USB 3, on the other hand, and the new USB-C do upgrade to gigabit and higher, frankly, which is exciting stuff. But you need to know that. So all this comes around to NDI. It can compress to close to 100 megabits per second. But if you don't have that gigabit, the software compression doesn't work right. It can't communicate the data back and forth to the different elements. And so throwing an NDI-enabled camera onto a 10100 network means it won't be able to talk and won't be able to negotiate properly. And it'll stop working. And that's kind of a problem. And the hard part is, it's not like you're going to have this big red blinking sign that says, I'm not working because it's not 10100. It's one of those things that you really do need to know about. So with that 10100 gigabit difference, that's important. And it's important for you to know as an audience, by the way, because we sell our products. We break our products at that 10100 versus gigabit. So you can buy a 10100 mid-span or 10100 switch and get certain features, or you can buy the gigabit switches and the gigabit mid-spans. For those of you who are curious, the difference is, if it's only 10100, our part number will start with a PoE. And if it's gigabit enabled, it will start with a GPoE. So just a little tidbit of information. So when you're looking at our site and you need to quickly differentiate, am I looking at 10100 or am I looking at gigabit? The PoE versus GPoE is really important. I'd be interested, Tech City in Honolulu. Sorry, we're going to miss you. I'll be in NAB, by the way. He said he's going to be in Austin the week of NAB. But I'll be the only one in NAB. If you want to come by and see Maria,
I'll be here. You can say hi.
She's here, and they'd be happy to sit down with you and run through your product and your problem and get you the right solution.
Absolutely.
But I would be curious, Tech in the City Honolulu, what was it that didn't work between the 10100 and gigabit? You said he'd said he had that issue there, so I'm curious about that. And then, Jim. Oh, it's Jim. I couldn't tell. Jim is Tech City in Honolulu. Oh. Jim, yes, we did. We met at the Mum in Honolulu. And the Mum in Milan, actually went there. And I'll get to this. Sorry, Tom. I'll get to this. The Mum is coming to Austin. And I guess now is as good a time as any. The Mum is coming to Austin. And we are very excited to have the Mum MikroTik users meeting here in Austin. And we have passes. So not only are you getting an exclusive invitation from Tom to go to NAB and go to the Streaming Idiots meetup. By the way, it's by invitation only. Tom, you do have to register, right? You have to actually get tickets. It's not just this kind of thing where you show up. Am I right on that?
Well, it's both. It's gotten kind of confusing. Since it's an after-hours event at NAB, if you're already out of the convention center, you need a special after-hours pass to get back. And so the after-hours passes they're not printed till the day of the event. So the after-hours passes will be available Tuesday morning, April 9th, and we'll make sure that all the sponsors of the meetup have those at their booth, and that's going to be PTZ Optics and VMix, of course, and then the X-Keys guys at PI Engineering, and then Magewell. And so I think they're Central Hall, South Upper, and South Lower Hall. Those three locations, there'll be at least one company in each location that will have passes on Tuesday that you can pick up that will give you access back into the Central Hall Tuesday after hours for the Streaming Idiots meetup. But you don't have to register in advance. You can go to our Eastern Shore Broadcasting Facebook page and RSVP. That'll help us get a head count. We might be able to actually afford 4 shrimp instead of 3. But nevertheless, we'd love to have you come, even if you forget to RSVP.
Then, oh, excuse me, Chris Z on Facebook wants to know, Tyler, if you'll be attending the Streaming Idiots meetup.
Oh, you know it. I've already registered on Facebook. I'm there. I put my name up. I will be there. I'm very excited about this to get involved in this community. So yes, Chris, I will be there 100%.
Perfect. And you also provided the booth for VMix, so it looks, and it'll still be available in the comments once we're done here. But for any of you watching, the booth for VMix is going to be SL7927. So that's where you'll be able to maybe catch Tom. Yeah, write that down. Keep it as a note. So that's going to be the VMix booth for NAB.
And I was actually going to bring up the NAB map, and I might still do that depending on time.
Okay.
But we're getting really good questions and feedback. So what other questions do you have?
Let's see.
Jim, Jim came in there with it failed on throughput. Go ahead and throw that up.
Switch.
So it failed on throughput. So obviously, Jim, you were doing something that required gigabit data rate, and the 10100 did not work out. And I apologize about that. So Jim and Cliff, thank you for bringing up that really important question about throughput, because that does make a difference. You need to know a little bit more about that gigabit versus 10100 and all really important features.
And if you ever have any question about the capability or its compatibility, give us a call, send us an email. You know, as Tyler mentioned earlier, we're available to help you, so we're here for you. We'll help you find the right solution if you have any questions.
Well, so if you don't mind, Tom, should we throw up a little bit of information about NAB? Because I think for those of, and I'll also point out, I'm not only going to be in Las Vegas for NAB, I'm also going for ISE West, which is a security conference going on in the same week. So I've got an extremely busy week. I'm going to be
busy April.
Busy April, because the Friday before, we're going to the MUM. Mm-hmm. The MUM is right here in Austin, and I was going to announce that. The MikroTik users meeting is right here in Austin on April the 4th and the 5th. We have extra tickets. If you're near Austin, you're gonna be in Austin, you want to check it out. For those of you who don't know much about MikroTik, it's a brand of routers and switches and infrastructure hardware that we have been involved with for many years. And we've been going to the MUMs for years. We love them. It's kind of like, it's a little bit like the Streaming Idiots crowd, where once you get into MikroTik and you start using it, you kind of become, a MikroTik guy. And it's a lot of fun. You meet people through, and I apologize, somebody's making a delivery. You make all kinds of friends at the events and meet a lot of people in the industry, a lot of internet service providers, a lot of people who do infrastructure. And so we have extra tickets that we're happy to share, and we will be exhibiting at the MUM. We will have a booth, and I'm very excited about that. So, and we should, we should really get together an event. See if we can plan an event for PoE Texas people from our live stream during the MUM. Because I'm going to be sending some other people a list of the best restaurants. By the way, if you want to know where to go to eat while you're here in Austin, let me know.
Yeah, we're kind of foodies.
Yes, text it. Yeah, whether you want tacos, whether you want steak, whether you want barbecue, we can give you the insider scoop. Not the ones that you're going to find on Yelp where you have to stand on line for an hour and a half. Don't do that. Come to us. We'll help you out there.
That's true. We will.
And so that's the MUM. So it's a busy April. You're right. The MUM, the April 4th and 5th here in Austin. Get tickets from us.
Yes.
I'll be at a NAB, hanging out with you, Tom, at the booth, VMix and BTZ Optics, and then I'll be hitting ISE West to see all the security things. So the NAB is at the Las Vegas Convention Center, and ISE West is actually at the Sands Hotel. They're within walking distance, but that's going to be exciting. I'm going to be at all of them. But yes, and so Jim, I'll get some recommendations. I'll actually post it on our Facebook page for those of you.
Yes.
That's it. We're going to post it on our Facebook page.
And then Jim also said, just friendly, I guess, advice for everyone out there. He said, just buy gigabit. Just do that upgrade and just do gigabit to help solve all your issues.
That's good advice. When in doubt, go gigabit.
We have another Facebook question from Chris. Thank you, Chris, for all the interaction today. So he said that he's curious if you could do a test of using an iOS device over NDI via Ethernet with one of our adapters. He said it'd be nice to see if the setup would improve quality of the video signal.
Interesting. So, Chris, just to double check to make sure I understand this question, are you trying to stream the video to the iPad, or are you trying to film on the iPad and send the video stream out? That is an interesting question. Setting up one of these iPads. I'm actually setting up an NDI. We're working with Paul. Don't tell people. We're working with Paul on a Switch project, and that Switch project would be integrate with NDI, and so I'm setting up some NDI tests here at the office, and that's a great suggestion to put in the AF Lightning, so you could do see the stream. Either see the stream, like broadcast to an iPad, or actually see if we can stream out from an iPad. One of the benefits of NDI, by the way, is that it can broadcast seamlessly to multiple devices. That's why a lot of people choose to use it, is I could have this broadcast, for example, and I could broadcast to 3 or 4 TVs with their own media stations with NDI, and that's what the multicast is for. So that's an interesting one. Chris, thank you for that suggestion. I'm excited about it.
We'll probably follow up with you on that one, Chris. And then Cliff chimed in again. Let's see what he has to say this time. So it looks like you installed a $6,000 system. Seems like a decent sized system. And you want to install a particular PTZ camera. So would it be possible to hack the camera to go into a system that is, looks like the rest of it got cut off for me. Oh, there it is. That was not originally made for. Can you just splice the wires?
Interesting. So you got a PTZ camera, and you want to hack the camera into a system that it was not originally made for. That's an interesting question.
Good questions today, guys.
Yeah, this is a good one. So, Cliff, is the camera communication protocol NDI, meaning does it have an Ethernet port on the back, or does it have an SDI port on the back? The SDI looks kind of like the coax cable. Looks like something you plug into your cable box, because the data streams are important. One of the big features about NDI is they took a broadcasting grade video stream and they basically pixelated it onto something that would be compatible with the TCP/IP communication protocol, because TCP/IP is a way devices talk to each other. It'd be like talking French or Spanish, right? I mean, you can't get a French guy to call a Spanish guy on the phone and get much. Probably, let's do better one, Chinese and Spanish, right?
Yeah,
and,
very different.
And we have a lot of good friends in China, and I can tell you, even when they call and talk to me, poor guys, they don't understand. Like, I talk so fast and I get all excited. But Jackie, I'm thinking about you, my friend. He's very patient. But TCP/IP is a communication protocol, and it has a structure and a way of talking. SDI, which is a different way of communication and protocol, they don't match. If you wanted to get them to talk, you do have to throw an adapter in there. And what the adapter does is it translates from one communication protocol to another. But if you wanted to, if your camera can communicate TCP/IP, even if it's not PoE, one of the things that we could do is we could help set you up with a PoE splitter. And what that does is it takes the TCP/IP and power in one side, and it'll split it out, so you can plug in power into the camera and the network cable into the back of the camera, and that would splice it in where you could use PoE to power the camera without having to get a whole different adapter. So that's what a splitter is for. But Cliff, I'm interested what kind of camera you're thinking about and what that is. So it kind of depends. Tom, I've gone off. Any tips here that you would recommend for Cliff on this?
You're doing great. You're doing great. Oh, yeah.
All right.
And it looks like Chris did specify, so he said you would use the iOS device as a camera source over NDI to vMix.
Ooh. As a, that is a very interesting question, Chris. I will set that up. I will test that for you because I know vMix can take in NDI sources. I'm thinking it's probably not likely.
Okay.
The only reason I say that is I'm not saying it won't, and I am definitely going to test it. Tom, you know this one.
I think I know this one.
Yes.
This one. There is an app that New Tech has developed for iOS that will allow it to make the iOS device function as a camera and make that camera video available over NDI.
There you go, Chris.
Now, whether that NDI can be rerouted from wireless to hardwired, I think is probably something that you can figure out. Yeah.
Okay, what's the app
There you
called,
go.
by the way, Tom? Just so I know.
I think it's called NDI camera.
NDI camera, very very complicated.
Yeah.
We'll look it up for
Yeah.
sure, and we'll put it in the
It's-
comments. That way you all can know.
It doesn't have any dots or any letters after it, so it's not like NDI 2.dot QR or anything. It's just NDI camera. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Excellent. I like that. So, Chris, thank you. I learned something very cool today. That was very cool.
Oh yeah, it looks like it's called NDI Capture.
NDI
Just let us know
Capture.
that was the name of the app. Yes, thank you, Chris.
All right. So, Chris, I'll set that up. I've got plenty of iPads hanging out here. I've got our adapter. I will set that up. Don't let me forget. We're going to do a video camera.
Perfect.
Well, Tyler, while you're setting up tests,
What can I test for you, Tom?
well, I would like you to test the Safari browser to a vmixcall.com call and see if that'll go over your local area network. Because then you've got a camera that comes in, and actually it would not use NDI at all. So it might have less latency, it might have more latency, it might have better resolution, it might have lesser resolution, but it would give you a way to compare the two, the NDI camera app versus using vMix Call through the Safari browser.
Very cool. So we're going to do a test. vMix integration. Can an iPad act as a camera? Which would be a very cool feature, by the way. And will it work through Safari browser into the vMix call or as an NDI capture device? Very cool. I'm excited. This is going to be exciting. I have no idea how all this is going to work, but I
Are we
think
going to share the results on our next show?
Oh,
Or are we
yeah,
going to put a separate post about
we're
it?
going to do a video. I'll do a whole
Nice.
video for you guys
Perfect.
on this because you asked, and I'll post it on YouTube. I'll post it on Facebook. You asked for it. Can I use an iPad to talk to vMix, and will it work through NDI or vMix call? The applications I can think of for this would be, let's say I've got somebody out in the field, right? Maybe Tom, you have a different idea. Somebody who's out with somebody trying to talk to them, and an iPad might be the right way to communicate. Chris, I'm interested in what application you would think for this. So Chris will come back and
One of the things to remember
yeah.
is that NDI is a network device interface. So the devices have to be on the same network. So if that iPad is out somewhere, maybe you can use a VLAN to get in to that network, but that would be a good situation where you could use vMix Call if it was a remote location coming in from a
point.
different network somewhere.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, Chris. So Cliff got back to us.
Yes. He said both systems have standard Swan type plugs, and that the difference was the cost. His was so proprietary that it didn't allow him to hook up anything else. And it's $1,000 for the camera they wanted to sell, and they wanted to pay about $500.
So you've got a Swan adapter on both sides, and basically, I think the question then, Cliff, you're asking is, can the network cable carry the Swan data stream over that cable? And it's not like you're trying to plug it into a PoE switch at the other end. You're plugging it right into a Swan adapter. That's an interesting one. Have you, Tom? Have you ever? You're the master hacker. Have you ever sent a like an SDI or a Swan data stream over network cable?
I don't even know what Swan is. I mean,
Swan is a brand of IP camera.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I know Swan, we worked with Swan. No. We actually replaced Swan power supplies. The switches have an odd plug adapter that we use. It's you use them more on cameras, interestingly enough. It's the EIJ04 and 05 cable adapter power ports. But I'm not as familiar with the network ports. So Tom, you've not hacked a Swan camera before. I personally haven't hacked a Swan camera, but I'm interested in that. Can you run it? That would be a good question. Cliff, I'll be frank, I don't know right off the top of my head. I'll have to look into that. But would you mind working with me on that, Maria? We'll find an answer for Cliff on that. That is an interesting question, and those are the kinds of questions I love to get, frankly, because I think they're a lot of fun.
Gets our gears going.
Yeah.
In our head. And it looks like, let's see. Oh, the app is actually, as Tom mentioned, by Newtek, Newtek, and it's called NDI Camera. So that's the app that you can use for iOS devices, it looks like. Camera. Yes, and then Chris said in his theory, he was hoping that the signal would be better over Ethernet.
Okay. Very cool. Well, Tom, how are we doing on time? I have run long, and we appreciate your time. It's really valuable.
Well, no, I wasn't ignoring you. I was just looking up the Facebook comments. I thought, there might be one that had an easier question that I could help with.
All right, very cool. Well, guys, the conversation has been great. And talking to Tom, one of the things I'm going to do with these videos, I know a live stream, we've gone an hour and 15 minutes, and that's a lot of time. And I don't know about you, but you guys have been awesome, fantastic, sticking around for an hour to talk with us, get input, get feedback, ask these great questions. And by the way, keep them coming. We'll answer all your questions, even if we can't answer them here. But Tom had made a suggestion to me that, again, you are the master, Tom. I'm going to start cutting these videos up. I'm going to break them out based on the conversations so that you can always come back and find them on our YouTube stream. Give me a few days to get them all cut up so that way you don't have to watch an hour and 15 minutes worth of film to catch that 2-minute bit of information that was so important to you. I'm going to cut these up because the conversations are so great. They're so much fun, and I learn a lot. And I'm definitely at the feet of the master. So I think, unless you guys have any more questions, we have been, and I'm very excited to try that, Chris. So I will definitely set that up, and I think your application will be very cool. But we've used a lot of Tom's time. He's a very busy YouTube streamer himself. So Tom, maybe to wrap up, would you mind sharing with us again, when can we find your live stream and where would we find it?
I was just thinking the exact same thing. It's amazing the synergy that's involved here. Yeah, for folks that are interested in live streaming, there is a regular weekly broadcast Wednesday afternoons at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Daylight savings time now, so if you're in the UK, you got to remember it's a switchover, and you guys don't switch over till the end of the month. But every week we talk about live streaming. We have guests on. We'll review products. We have giveaways. The show is called Streaming Idiots because everybody, sooner or later when they're doing live streaming, they feel like an idiot. Why didn't I think of that? Oh, I'm such an idiot. Yeah. And it's been really there's a Facebook group. It's got about 2,500 folks in it from all over the world. So there's, a conversation going on pretty much 24/7 about live streaming. People asking for advice, sharing things that worked for them, basically bantering about. It's a great community. A lot of those folks will be attending the Streaming Idiots meetup at NAB, which is April 9th. That's Tuesday night at the PTZ Optics booth. And Tyler will be there, and I will be there. So those are 2 autographs you have to get. Well, his for sure. And it's going to be just a ton of fun. The group is on Facebook at Streaming Idiots, and then you can get to it also at streamingidiots.com. And so that's a great place to come in and kind of wander around, virtually and get to know the streaming world. Ask questions if you want to join the Streaming Idiots group. We remind the group every time, that there are people that are just joining that don't know the answers, and they're going to ask the same questions that the last group asked. But we have to be as gentle and as gracious with them as people were with us when we were learning. So it's a good, safe place to come learn about live streaming, and everybody's welcome. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you, Tom. It is a wonderful place. I am a beneficiary of it. I'm a graduate of Tom's program, so definitely take advantage of it. Thank you, Tom. So I'm going to wrap it up with our audience. So everybody, thank you so much for having Tom here. And Tom, I will see you at NAB.
I can't wait. Maria, Tyler, thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.
So just to wrap it up, just a couple quick reminders. I had so much more to talk about with NAB. I'm going to post it on our social channels. Come back to it. Put all your questions on Facebook. Put all your questions on YouTube. We'll answer them. We're excited to have your guys' participation. Again, April 4th and 5th, the Mum here in Austin. I will also post where to get some great food in Austin for those of you guys who are coming. And I will also post a couple of quick notes. We'll do a quick little video about how to navigate NAB. And if this is your first time doing a hardcore trade show, I'm going to give you the ins and outs of how to not kill yourself at one of these big shows in Vegas. The big shows in Vegas are their own beast. But thank you very much. Everybody put it on your calendar. April 2nd, right before the Mum, I'm going to have Derek Anderson on our show live streaming with us to talk about what's going on with MikroTik and that world of very exciting and interesting users. So make time for it. We're very excited to have you guys here and see you on April 2nd. Bring your tough questions because these guys are MikroTik experts, and I'm going to be ready to learn a lot. So I will wrap it up with a big thank you to everybody. Get your Mum tickets from us, and I will see you at NAB and ISC West. Very excited to see you all there. And you guys have a great week.
See you next time.
Oh, there we go, Tom. How you doing?